Welcome to another session of Chatting with Nina. I am so excited today to have Mr. Sidney Bailey on with us, and we're going to have him introduce himself. So, Sidney, can you first just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? What path has your journey to become an administrator taken? And then talk about the present role that you're in.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me here. I'm excited to speak with you about something I'm very passionate about. As said, my name is Sidney Bailey IV. I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am a University of Michigan alum, Go Blue. And kind of my career path, I've kind of landed back in the state. My first 15 years in this field, I was actually in the state of Maryland as well as DC. I taught middle school math for 8 years in Prince George's County. After that, I was able to go to DC where I had my first assistant principal job at a charter school for 3 years. And then I came back to Maryland where I was an AP for 4 years at an alternative ed school. And then, home began calling. My wife is from around the region we're in now. An opportunity, wonderful opportunity opened up. And I was able to come to Portage West Middle School, which is where I am now as the assistant principal under a great leader who is a leader of my building, but also a leader of MASSP, Jason Messenger. And so the Portage community has been very welcoming to me. I came during the pandemic, pretty much at the height of the pandemic. So that was an interesting time to come into a new building and a new community. And I think that actually plays a huge role in what we're going to talk about today too, in terms of how I was able to connect to the community.
Absolutely. So we're going to get into our focus. Our focus of the interview today is the importance of social media in the world of education. And again, I have the honor of having Mr. Bailey here because he is an aficionado when it comes to, social media and having a social media presence. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how did you get started with social media?
Sure. So when I was in college, I was pretty much at the tail end of my college experience when social media kind of came on the scene. So I immediately realized the networking abilities of just being on a social network, networking with peers that you haven't seen in a long time, networking with colleagues. But it wasn't until I would say my 6th year in this field that a friend of mine, Mr. Albert Lewis in Maryland, he had developed this great rapport with his students. And he shared with me, I started, I have this social media account where I'm able to communicate with my students. And we talk about all kinds of stuff, do announcements and all these things. And, it just took me. It took me back because I said, wow, I never even considered, using social media in the educational field. In my field, I kind of thought it was just another world. And so once he shared that with me and you realize that students are on social media anyway, we're always trying to meet our students where they are. Well, they are online, right. And so I just started to realize the importance of how do we build intentional relationships with our students where we need to know what they're going through and how do we know what they're going through besides everyday conversations. It's by getting online, and just seeing what's out there. And so that world opened up and there's just, I realized that there are so many different directions in which you can go in terms of how you develop the way that you access social media. Of course, for everyone, you can use it just on a basic level in terms of connecting with your friends and family, which is important. But, in addition to that, I realized the power that it had in becoming a vehicle in terms of how I communicate with my school community and community stakeholders. And so, it's truly embedded in the work that I do as a leader in the building as well as in the community. It's just such an important tool that I value, that I'm always learning about. There's always something new that's happening with it, which keeps me on my toes. When we talk about the positions that we're in, we need to be, eternal learners, and this is something that you just got to stay abreast of. And so I am definitely a fan and all in when it comes to social media.
Constantly reinventing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you talk about how do you choose the platforms that you're active on?
Yeah. So, first when we think about, communication, you're wondering, all right, if I'm going to develop this social media account, who am I trying to reach? And where are they? Initially I spoke about students, and so thinking about, all right, if I develop a social media account, how do I make sure that I can connect with students? If I'm developing this to be a tool to communicate with my parents, what platforms are my parents on? Am I going to do a survey? Is that going to just come through communication? Like, how am I going to go about making sure that I'm aware in terms of what platform they're on? And so for me, my two main platforms that, I use are Facebook and Twitter. Facebook, because that's, one of the social media platforms that's been around pretty much the longest, I would say, in terms of this whole system of social media platforms. And then Twitter, because Twitter was actually the platform where I realized the power in social media in terms of how many different resources and tools and things that are just out there that I can use as a professional, that I can show to my students, that I can connect with my families, and as of recent, I've began to use an Instagram account for our building. I think after a conversation that we had, I kind of went back and said, do we already have one here? And so I began to use those to use that platform also. So those are the three main platforms that I currently use, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So it's interesting. You talked earlier about, reinventing yourself and, staying abreast of what is going on. And it's the same with social media. You talked about Facebook being one of the earliest, and I'm sure you're able to connect with parents there, but probably not students as much.
Right.
Students, they're like, only older people are on Facebook, that type of. So it's just constantly knowing, what they're on and staying in their worlds and staying relevant with what they're doing.
Well, I think it also depends on what age you're working with. Yeah. Like I've been in middle school my entire career. And so, this is a time frame where, some students have access to social media and some don't, and I don't necessarily want to be the one to say you got to get on right now, because once you're on, for those who are on social media, you're kind of on, and then you're trying to search, and it's a whole nother world that we can't control everything that's out there. You can give guidance, in terms of the imprint that you make as a person online, but it's just another thing to have there. And so my again, it all depends on who is your main audience that you are trying to connect with. I know that 100% of my students aren't on social media. I know that there's a large number that are. I know that there are some students who are trying to get online, and I know that there are some students that aren't even aware or don't want to be online. And so I would say at my level, communicating with parents and just trying to find where our parents are is probably my number one priority with student outreach and connection, and just being able to find us and trying to model, being responsible. How do you responsibly post? What does it mean to do? I mean, there's an opportunity to teach. I feel, and that's, that was another reason why, like, rather than just kind of ignore the fact that our students are on these platforms, I can either act like it's not there, and then they just kind of do what they want. And we know how that goes, especially at this young, impressionable age. Or B, we kind of dive in and say, okay, if this is what you're going to do, understand this is the responsibility that you have, and this is the imprint that you are making. Right. So, yeah.
So I like how you talked about connecting with your different audiences, knowing your audience, knowing where your audiences are. And you talk a lot about using this as a way to connect with parents. So I'm curious, are there other stakeholders that you're connecting with? Do you have staff that are, also following these pages? And just, can you talk a little bit about your overall goal with your social media presence?
Yeah. So, I believe in something called having a social media brand, like in terms of, when you think of a school newsletter, that's an opportunity to share the wonderful things that are happening in your building, or to make announcements, or to, to praise things that are happening with your students or staff, whatever way you want to use that. And so, social media is like a snapshot. It's not like you're going to see it all at once. So whatever you post is just giving a glimpse into what you're doing here or what you're doing in your building. And so the way that I tend to use it and who I connect with, one, when it comes to parents, I want to make sure that they are aware. These are the different ways that you can follow us on social media. We still have a newsletter that goes out each week to our parents. But in addition to that, if you want to see in real time, because the reality is, if you're out at an appointment, if you're at a child's practice, a lot of times you will see adults on their phones, and they may be scrolling through something. And if they are scrolling, why not scroll across something about your child's school or your child's next school, and what's going on there. Our teachers, yes, there are some teachers that have developed social media accounts as well, where they are posting things about their class. They may post things that are happening with their students, again, to praise some of the great things that they have going on, and also a way for them to connect with parents. And then when we think about what other stakeholders, we want to follow community members, when it comes to donations to the school, when it comes to community service opportunities, how are we connecting with the community, especially, again, I go back to the pandemic, that kind of just is shut off that face-to-face opportunity to go and meet folks. And then for someone like me, who was brand new to this community, that was like one of my only lifelines to introduce myself. So I became pretty savvy when it comes to developing videos, when it came to making posts about, again, the school and the things that we have going on. We have to get these messages out, to our parents, to our students, as well as the community, so that they know, well, what's going on? How are you guys working with our students and helping our students? And then, announcements when it comes to sports activities, when it comes to clubs, and being able to show, our coaches and our facilitators, as well as our students, okay, if you have, if you like comic books, like we have a comic book club here, you could, in essence, connect with a comic book expert or with another school's comic book club or whatever it is, to a different social media account. If as a leader, if I'm looking to start project-based learning, I can go online. Of course, Google has everything there, but you could also try to find a school or a project-based learning tagline, and see online, well, who's doing this out there, and actually have real-time communication with the school across the country or across the world, as a student, if I'm looking to look at, a college or look at a profession, I could, in essence, get on a social media page and use that search engine, and say, okay, I want to learn about NASA has one of the coolest, pages that's on Twitter where they're constantly showing things. And so being able to teach, our students and our staff and our parents and our community members, there's so many ways that social media can be used, and for us to be a model of that, for me to be a model of that, to show, I'm going to connect with my old school. If you're looking to go to Michigan, you can follow their account online and as a seventh grader and begin learning about the things so that when you want to apply, what they are doing, so as you can see, I can get so excited, about it, because there's so many different ways that we can teach, our peers and our colleagues and our students and our families and our community members. How can you maximize, these social media platforms to help with whatever needs or whatever interests that you may have?
I love your excitement with it though, because I think you hear so much of the negative aspect of social media. And it's almost like you flipped that narrative to show all of these positive things that you can, take from social media. And you talked a lot about access. It's almost like evening that access so that everyone has the same access to reach out to these, entities that maybe you would have never been able to connect personally with or on a personal level. So I just love that. And I love you talk a lot about the branding, branding your school. Can you spend a little bit of time to talk about why this is so important in this day and age of technology, and how would one go about, like, if they, were just starting to dip their toe in social media and branding, how would you suggest that somebody go about starting to develop a brand for their school?
Yeah, sure. So, again, I would first take a look at what is in your school newsletter currently. Like, look at the tools that you are currently using. What are you including in that newsletter? What do you deem as important? When you walk into a school building, a leader knows that what's on the walls and what's around can tell anybody about what you value in that building. If you have a PBIS theme, if you have a focus, that you guys have, if you're a STEM school, like, how do I know that? And how does anyone else know that? And then think to yourself, think about the person that's not able to come into your building. How can I get this word out about the wonderful things that we are doing here for students, for the future teachers, in the country, if they're looking to see, about different school buildings. How do they know? What does it feel like to be a teacher in your school? How do you value your teachers? How do they know that they are valued, and how does the community or anyone else that's able to access, your accounts know that you value your teachers? How do you show that you value your students? What's important to you? Are you constantly only posting about sports? Are you constantly only posting about, achievements? Are you posting about extracurricular activities? Are you posting about announcements about family events, or is there a combination of all those things? What do you value? And so once you determine, and that conversation can happen through, either, a survey of your staff, a survey of your community stakeholders to figure out what do they want to know and want to see about your building. Once you've established that, then you want to identify, okay, what is the social media platform that we want to use first? You don't want, like I mentioned 3. You don't want to do all 3 at once, because then you become overwhelmed with trying to go back and forth between them all. And then, we already have enough on our plate, and you just say, forget it. So try to say, all right, if we're going to develop a Facebook account, okay, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a Twitter account. This is what we're going to do. Now with that, a sidebar, there are a lot of tools out there that allow you to merge those together. So that's just not like you're doing two things, but you know, we can get to that later. But once you identify the platform that you want to use, you know, then you want to identify, you know, what is the system or schedule? Like, what do I want to post? You know, some places will identify on Wednesday is our posting day. Like, that's where I'm going to do something. Tuesday may be a day that I'm just posting a motivational message, you know, that I want to have out there. Thursday could be a throwback day, you know, where I show pictures from the past. You know, it just all depends how frequent do you want to be able to post. And then lastly, you know, how do I get the word out to the community that this platform is now up and running? You know, come follow us here. Am I putting this on my school billboard that's outside of the school? Am I including it on school programs that's being passed out for different activities? Am I having my teachers share this with my students? Am I giving this info out during open house? You know, does the district know that I have this new account that we have up there? Because most school districts do have some type of social media account, so they can make that announcement for you, you know, and then, you know, you want to identify who's going to be the person that's going to run it. You know, clearly, you know, in my building, I truly enjoy it. You know, it could be a team effort between two colleagues. You know, going back to my friend in Maryland that really showed me the power of Twitter and students. He actually had an announcements club where one of their roles were to develop the tweets that will go on the school Twitter account. You know, and so again, that's teaching that social responsibility while being online and developing that imprint. I'm instead of just telling you, I'm teaching you, I'm giving you the opportunity to serve as the face of our school. You know, and so, you know, but again, this isn't a decision that you want to do by yourself. This is a conversation that you want to have with a team of folks to go through, and then you just want to be consistent. You know, as much as you can, you know, you know, again, as much as I enjoyed social media, being a leader in the school, you get busy, you know, you get tied up, but I have a reminder and alert that says, remember, post something. Okay. You know, make sure, like, especially for those folks who have invested and said, okay, we're going to follow you, you know, but if you let a month or so go by, and like, all right, well, maybe they're not doing this. And so you want to try to be as consistent as you can. So I think I kind of gave a breakdown of Brandon. That might have been a lot.
No, some very, I mean, oh my God, great ideas. Something that resonated with me that I necessarily didn't think about that you talked about was using it almost like as a marketing technique. You know, and marketing is, I don't know if you specifically are targeting, but we know that there's a teacher shortage. And marketing to that generation of young teachers that we know that they're on social media. So if they see this presence and, hey, I want to check out this school, I want to be in this school.
Absolutely.
You know, that's a great way to recruit staff coming in.
Yeah. It's you know, that's, you know, I'm not sure if teacher prep programs are telling their students that, but just as you said, we know that people are on social media. You know, and people know that school districts or schools, for the most part, have some type of social media account. So are they going to log on and see the last post that you made was 3 years ago? You know, or are they going to get on and see? And again, don't get me wrong. Just because your social media account is not active doesn't necessarily equate to what's happening in your building, but it is another tool to be able to get folks excited about coming to at least visit where learning and education is happening. And as a student, you know, if I'm a parent, you know, and I, you know, again, at the middle school level, like, this is a scary time, you know, for fifth graders preparing to come to the big middle school. How can I set them at ease? Well, let's take a look at what they value. You know, let's take a look at some of the things that they have in school. Oh, cool. They have a they have a cool STEM program. Oh, they have a comic book club. Oh, they have cross country. Oh, wow, they value this teacher. Look at these students doing these great things. Like it's an opportunity to brag, to paint a picture of this is what we do, this is how we do it, this is what we value, and this is why we want you to be a part of us.
Right, right. So can you spend a little time talking about personal pages versus professional pages? What are your thoughts on educators having separate accounts, and what about specific school accounts versus a principal account, and just what are your thoughts on those things?
Yeah. So, I mentioned in the beginning that, when I was finishing college, that was when Facebook had really took off. And for those that were around for the beginning of Facebook, man, I feel like I'm dating myself. Right,
Okay,
right,
I'm right
right
there
now.
with you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But yeah, if you were around for the beginning, you know that you had to have a college email,
Yeah.
to be able to log on to it. And so, most college students at that time were starting their pages. And so, again, you're a young person, you're using it as a way to connect with your friends. And then, your family begins to get on there, and you develop this following of, intimate or even close friends and family that you have a network, and that, when we think of our personal and professional lives, the things that you may do or say or hang out with around your peers outside of work, you may not have those same conversations inside of your school building. And that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's an expected thing, in essence. And so, once I realized, that I wanted to dive into social media as a professional tool, I think that was what made me make the decision, that I wanted to create, a professional account, that I because I had a specific purpose for this account, like where my any personal page or whatnot, like the purpose of that is to network and chat with my friends, and family or whomever. I have the specific purpose for this account, and that's to, again, be connect with my school, connect with my students, connect with my staff, connect with other professional colleagues that are in the same profession that I'm in, possibly reach out to community stakeholders also. So it's almost like how you also have a professional email, like when you're emailing, your professional colleagues, you'll use your professional email to communicate with folks, because it adds a layer of exactly who you are.
Right.
Like I'm introducing myself before you even meet me or talk to me.
Right.
And that's how your social media pages. And so, I as far as I go, just because I already had a personal page, I had a specific purpose for my professional account. So when it comes to separate, you just want to think, what do I want this page to be?
Absolutely.
And if you want to have your personal account serve as both, that's perfectly up to you. But just know that you're merging, your personal and professional lives.
Right.
And whereas if I have my professional account, like that's what I'm using it for, it is to network and engage in my professional world and to have conversations over here, so some folks do both. Me personally, I again, I have that professional account that I have, so.
No, I love how you talked about purpose and intent. You need to know what the purpose and intent is going into the social media presence. And so that's really important. So what do you recommend for new administrators if they're looking to start their social media presence, or even veteran administrators who want to try something different? How would you suggest they start on this journey?
So, Twitter, I think, has been the long-lasting social media platform of choice when it comes to professionals in our field, just because, there are so many teachers and administrators and superintendents and state leaders that have social media accounts. So I would say, one, go ahead and start a Twitter account. It's very basic to do, and then I would recommend going out and trying to find and follow either some of your colleagues or mentors or people that you look up to in this profession to see what does their social media imprint look like. Like how are they using their social media account? I sometimes take a look at the list of who they follow, just to see like, oh, wow, they're following this person. This seems like a good person to take a look at also, and then, if in your district, I would take a look at your district social media account to see what are they posting, what do they value, and then really think about, what do I want to share either about myself, what do I want to share about my school, what do I want to share about my students, like what's going to be my thing, and once you identify what that thing is, set yourself on a routine of this is when I'm going to post about it. Like you don't want to, especially if you're new to it, you don't want to get into this rhythm of, okay, I'm going to post every day and I'm going to follow somebody and do something every day because, it's going to wear off. It's going to seem like just another thing, whereas if you're truly trying to develop something, that'll take time. And you want to treat it as such, you want to make sure that your building is then aware that you have this account and try to use it as a chance to reach out to your families, and you can, something cool that, I remember a teacher doing, they posted a picture. And it was a creative writing project. And so what they did, they just posted the picture and the task was for students, families, parents, whoever, take a look at this picture and describe within the length of the tweet, what does this make you think of? Or how does this make you feel? So, you can just do whatever, however, which way you want to do it, in your realm, and like find something that you enjoy, build it up, be consistent, and then, you'll just grow from there.
Love it. Love it. I want to take the time to thank you for taking this time to chat with us today. It is an absolute honor to be able to highlight you as a bit of a social media influencer in the world of education. So to receive any insight from you on this topic is really a big deal. So thank you. For those that want to follow you on social media, can you give us your social media usernames?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Bailey IV. That is MrBaileyIV. You can follow Portage West Middle School. I run our school account also at Go West MS, GOWEST MS. We also have our Facebook and Twitter page with the same tag, Go West MS. And so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm doing on my personal account, as well as how I'm running our school accounts, and just to see, what kind of stuff we're doing on both pages there.
Okay. And as follow-up, also, if you are interested in hearing more about social media branding, Sidney has committed to sharing more on our In the Middle with You webinar on March 21st. So next year, when we revisit this topic of branding, marketing, promoting your school through social media use, he will be there to share more. So make sure, if you have not already registered, you register for our webinar series. The series topics are listed on our website, and I will also make sure to attach a link here so that you can do that. So again, Mr. Bailey, we thank you. We will continue to follow you and all the great things that you're doing on social media.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and
make sure if you're not, that you are following Ms. Davis as well. She has a phenomenal Twitter page. I'm learning stuff from her every day too. So
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm diva_principal. So absolutely. I'm trying to learn from Mr. Bailey and those influencers like him out there. So I'm trying to get on their level. But again, just thank you for having this conversation with us today.
thank you.